Good afternoon, dear friends. You are on the channel Military Reporter and we are still with you in a daily format of studying the situation at the front. Some sources reported that the Ukrainians agreed to give the Russians LPR, DPR, Zaporizhia, and Crimea along the line of combat contact. Additionally, one of the paragraphs in the demands from the Ukrainian side stated that the Russians would have no rights over the territory of the city of Kherson and the territory of the siege of Zaporizhia. However, I'll remind you that according to Putin's statements made in the summer of 2024, these territories, like the rest of Zaporizhia and the rest of Kherson, should also become part of the Russian Federation. This is the only insight, the only piece of news we possibly got from that negotiation process. But we need to understand one important thing. All these talks and the Russian progress on the ground in Sudzha mean a lot. Obviously, they mean a lot. But if Putin ever makes a decision to continue the special military operation or not, and more importantly, if Putin ever makes a decision to enter the Sumy region and continue the offensive operation on the shoulders of the armed forces of Ukraine toward the capital of this territory, the city of Sumy, he will make his decision based on completely different factors. It won't be based on the words of the United States of America, not on the sanctions of Trump, not on the situation on the ground, and of course, not on the results of the Sudzha counteroffensive operation. We need to understand one important thing. If Putin ever makes a decision regarding the next stages and the next offensive operation, and whether the Russians are going to continue moving further in the direction of the city of Sumy, he will make this decision based on the picture from his window. I'm not talking about the trees and grass that he will see from his window. I'm talking about the lines. I'm talking about the lines to the recruitment centers of the Russian Federation. We need to understand one important thing. The Russian victory, the current Russian victory in Sudzha, will bring the Russians many benefits. The most important is that the Russian spirit and probably the level of Russian patriotism will become increasingly high. Starting tomorrow, or maybe even starting this evening, we're going to start seeing huge lines in every single city of Russia, where people will sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. We need to understand that probably, and very likely, during the next months, the Russians will be able to complete their plan for mobilization, more precisely for the recruitment process for the next entire year. If Putin understands this, if he understands that during the next months, he will be able to sign contracts with another 300,000 to 400,000 Russian soldiers, then the question becomes, why should he stop his offensive operations? Why should he sign anything with the Ukrainians or with the United States of America if he receives another 400,000-strong army? Obviously, this is going to happen based on this victory, based on the clashes in Sudzha and the Sudzha direction. This is the only factor that will force Putin to continue or stop the special military operation and sign a peace agreement with the Ukrainian side. Furthermore, the Ukrainians likely made another mistake. Because the Russians are making significant progress on the ground, the Ukrainians decided to attack Russian territory with a significant number of drones. The Russians reported that during the previous 2 hours, over the course of the past night, air defense systems on duty intercepted and destroyed 337 Ukrainian drones. The Ukrainians say they carried out this attack with one purpose: to show the Russians that from now on, the Ukrainians have the same weapons and can do the same as the Russians. The National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine stated that the massive attacks by Ukrainian drones in the Moscow region are a signal to Putin about the need to cease fire in the air. This was stated by the head of the Center for Combating Disinformation, Kavelenka. As you can see, the Ukrainians decided to show the Russians that they also have lots of drones and can attack deep inside Russia. The Ukrainians are saying that sooner or later, the Russians will be out of missiles as well. But to tell the truth, I believe that with the Russian progress in Sudzha, this massive missile and drone strike across the entire territory of Russia will have just one consequence: bigger lines to sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. Anyway, let's wait and see. But as of the end of March 11th, we believe that during the next 24 hours, the Ukrainians will abandon their positions in the territory of Sudzha with the purpose of securing the border and holding their lines in the Sumy Oblast. Let's wait and see what happens next. But obviously, the upcoming day is going to be a decisive day for both the Russians and the Ukrainians. Now let's move further and discuss the situation on other front lines. First, let's talk about the Zaporizhia direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. According to the information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the vicinity of Kamenn. This progress was discovered based on a video published by the Ukrainian side, showing how the Ukrainians withdrew and attacked Russian units and positions. Right before we started making this video, we got another episode published by the Russian side showing Russian soldiers raising the Russian flag in the northern part of the settlement of Piatikaki. We will discuss this in detail during the next update, which will be made within the next 12 hours. Another important area is the southern Donetsk direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. However, today, several neutral and pro-Ukrainian sources reported that the Ukrainians counterattacked in this territory and managed to restore control over some positions. For example, according to neutral mappers, the Ukrainians counterattacked in the area of Borlitsk and forced the Russians to fall back. Furthermore, Ukrainian sources reported that as a result of counterattacks, the Ukrainians managed to push the Russians back from the territory of Novosilka. Currently, according to pro-Ukrainian mappers, this territory is contested or a gray zone. For now, we're not going to change the map because for contested areas in the gray zone, we expect to receive proof, like videos or other evidence, from the other side. According to pro-Russian sources, the Russians, as a result of an offensive operation, managed to break through the Ukrainian defense line and enter the settlement named Vilnpol. Currently, there are very heavy clashes for this small village. We can say that it's not a major offensive operation from either the Russian or Ukrainian side. It's just very close combat and fighting along this line, nothing more. Currently, both the Russians and the Ukrainians are trying to gain the initiative. As for the Bakhmut direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything significant. Regarding the Pokrovsk direction, the main activity over the past 24 hours was recorded in the settlement named Shevchenka. Here, we see the same story as in the Great Novosilovka area. Both the Russians and Ukrainians are attacking each other, sometimes changing the color of the map 3 or 4 times per day as we receive updates that improve Russian or Ukrainian positions. For now, the Russians have improved their positions in the northern part, but according to different mappers, the Ukrainians have improved their positions in the eastern part. Now let's discuss the situation in the Toretsk direction. From this territory, we received a very important update today. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that as a result of clashes, the armed forces of the Russian Federation managed to establish complete control over the settlement named Gorkova. This settlement is located in Donetsk. The Ukrainians have since renamed this village, which used to be called Gorkova, but now they refer to it as so. Based on the report from the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, we have adjusted the map to reflect this gain in the Toretsk agglomeration. Despite the successful attempts from the Ukrainian side to counterattack over the previous 2 weeks, the Russians have continued their offensive and managed to improve their positions. As for the city of Chasov Yar, we haven't received any significant updates. The situation in the southern Donetsk direction remains unchanged. The Russians continue bombing and attacking Ukrainian positions, ammunition depots, warehouses, and temporary deployment points of FPV drone operators. Currently, these are the main targets for the Russians in this area. In the Kupyansk direction, there are no significant changes. The only important development is that, according to the information we have, the Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, Valery Gerasimov, visited the area of responsibility of the Northern Group of Forces. He held discussions with Russian commanders about the situation on the ground and gave his own orders. Therefore, it is very likely that in the near future, the Russians will restart their offensive operation in this area with the goal of taking the city of Kupyansk under complete control. However, for now, different mappers have confirmed Ukrainian counterattacks in this area, which allowed the Ukrainians to restore control over some territories between Sinkivka and the river. Despite this progress, we believe that in the very near future, the Russians will launch a powerful offensive operation in this direction as well. And that's it for today's military summary. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and have a good day.